Here's a quick installation guide for this new bearing block. I don't have a better name for it at the moment. But anyway, some context on what it is and why you might want it. So on your stock 944 shifter linkage, you have this plastic coupler in the middle. I don't know what the right name is, but you can see, well, I've already backed off this lock nut, so it's not a really fair thing for me to do to try and show you all the slop in it, but mine was horrendous on my 83 NA, and you can go ahead and replace the lever in the car with the only 944 part or some other design, and you'll get a lot of slop out that way, but a lot of times you still have slop originating from this plastic coupler here just being worn out and wallowed out. So the new design incorporates thrust bearings, and I've just got these washers kind of held on with a dab of grease, so I think if I... yeah, there we go. You can see them in there. They're needle roller thrust bearings, and here's the one that goes over the bigger shaft. Nothing exotic, and they're in this PETG housing, which is quite strong, and it weighs a lot more, actually. It's more dense than the stock part, so I'm actually quite confident in the design there. So anyway, that's the idea. I've actually been running one of these in our rally car. We installed it, I want to say, in summer 2020. And it's been holding up absolutely great. So at this point, I'm just going out to see if anyone wants to test one. But the scope of this video is purely going to be how to install it and how to get there in the first place. So the first thing you're going to want to do, obviously, is remove the linkage from your car. I'm not going to go through it. There's tons of information online. But once you get it off, the next step is going to be you're going to want to first loosen this bolt. This is just a 13mm socket M8 lock nut. I already kind of started it off earlier, but when this comes off, you'll want to replace this. You can reuse it, but if you're going this far, just replace the stupid thing. Once that comes off, you'll have this washer. Now, this is a special size washer. It's not a standard size you can get at Ace Hardware or a McMaster car. The inner diameter actually sits on a little bit of a ledge, which you'll see in a second. So definitely keep this washer and don't lose it. But clean it up a little bit, get the crap off of it. All right. This is going to come off now, and this one wasn't bad. Honestly, this linkage came off a 60,000 mile 944 S2 transaxle, so I've seen a lot worse and a lot dirtier, so yeah, don't expect yours to necessarily look this clean. There's going to be a couple of these black rubber, I don't know what you call them, like compression rings or something, but you can see here on the left side there's one that's still on here like that, like I can pop it off, and the one that was just sitting there a second ago came off of this side. So that's on all four ends where the coupler meets the two rods, so you can go ahead and just discard them. Next thing you're going to want to do is there's a snap ring, and I apologize for the poor lighting here. You can kind of see the two little ears there. Just get a good set of snap ring pliers. I'm just using these that I got at the hardware store a couple years ago. And I will need two hands to do this, so I'm going to have to put my phone down. I don't have a better filming solution. I'm still stuck in the using your smartphone kind of setting here for filming. So anyway, I'm going to put the phone down, take the snap ring off, and we'll adjourn after that. Alright, so definitely save the snap ring. Unless yours is completely rusted through and unfit for use, you're going to want to reuse this. I've actually got some snap rings from, it's a VAG part. I ordered a bunch of them, and I actually found that despite them being the correct part number per the PET for the 944, there's something about the depth of the groove or the width of the groove where they sometimes actually pop off after a few weeks or months of driving. So I would always just reuse the stock ring whenever you can. Once the stock ring is off, there's this other washer here, and there's one of those little rubber rings again. Again, you're going to want to keep this, clean it up a little bit, whatever. And then you can go ahead and just remove the plastic coupler entirely from this 15mm shaft. So yeah, this is 15mm, and this shaft here is 10mm. And you can see that shoulder that I was talking about before where it's a little bit of a special size washer that goes there. Anyway, yeah, so this is your stock part. Nothing wrong with it, it just wears out. It's just a plastic part, just like the replacement, so I'm not overly concerned about the fact that we're using plastic here as the main housing material. So with that done, we'll get our last little rubber ring out of the way. Go ahead and clean your part up and prepare it for the new part. Through the magic of video editing, we're back with some cleaned up parts and a little bit of some yellow zinc plating going on here on some of these. So here's our new lock nut, our 2 washers, and our original snap ring. Now, the next thing to do is crucial, and that is determining if we need to shim along this main 15mm shaft. So quite easy. Really all we need to do is get your 2, make sure that everything's on here, so it's going to be below each of these thrust bearings is another one of these washers, so that has to be there. Then it goes thrust bearing, and then you get a second one of these hardened washers. You're going to want to put a little bit of grease on this. Now, the first couple that I'm sending out to testers, I'm using this Redline CV2 synthetic grease. So I've already preloaded these bearings with a little bit of that. I don't know how well it's shown up, and I'm going to probably add a little bit more now that I've spun it around a little bit. But essentially, all you're going to do is, I'm going to do this with one hand the best I can. But yeah, just get it all on there. On it goes. And then you're going to want to just kind of see the snap ring groove. So once you put this washer on, you're just going to want to see where the snap ring groove is relative to this washer. The idea is to get it, you know, like so that when you put the snap ring on, it's going to be a snug fit, but not so tight to where it's binding up. And you definitely don't want to be, see if we could focus. So that's about right. So that's the nominal size of these couplers here. You can see that we can easily get the whole snap ring in. There might be just, I don't know, a few thous of slop there, which is perfect because again, you want free movement. You don't want the snap ring to be preloaded when you do this because that's just asking for it to get pushed off down the road. So I'll show you an example now of one where we do need spacers. Alright, this is the exact same bearing block from a second ago. However, now I'm using a different shaft from a different linkage that I took apart a while back. I just wanted to show the variance that exists in these. So it's a little bit hard to see here, but there's about, I don't know, I'm gonna call it 0.2, 0.3 millimeters, maybe half a millimeter gap, where if we put that snap ring in right now, there'd be a little bit of lash back and forth on this, like it could go back and forth. So the solution here is to shim it. And I just got these off the printer a second ago. So these are PETG material, and these will be the shims. I'll pull them off in a second. So these are the 2 shims that I'm including in every kit. You have one that is, it's only 0.16 millimeters thick, so this is just really for fine tuning. This is made with the same, it's a really durable material, PETG, same as the coupler, which is incredibly heat resistant, chemical resistant, etc., etc. And this one is 0.32 millimeters thick. So between these 2, there should be a combination that takes out any slack that you have. So in this case, I'm going to start off with the thinner of the 2, and I'll need 2 hands to put the snap ring on, and then we'll come back and see how that treated us. Alright, so I've gone ahead and just put that shim in between this washer and the thrust bearing washer itself, so you don't want to have the shim just right up against the snap ring. Just sandwich it between those 2 washers. And this is perfect. Let's see if I can do this with one hand. I don't know if you can hear that. There's just a very small amount of clicking as I slide it back and forth. The bearings are very smooth. There's no binding or anything. I can move it all the way around, a full rotation without it binding. That's what you want. So just be on the safe side. Don't shim it to the point where this is, you know, it's dragging on the washers or anything, because the last thing you want to do, again, the last thing you want to do is to preload the snap ring, because it's going to be liable to become unseated. So I'm going to go ahead and relocate all this onto my original shaft that I was doing, and then we'll come back. Alright, it's all put back together. I didn't show the process of putting this shaft on because it's pretty obvious how to do that. I just used a normal hex nut just for demonstration purposes to avoid burning through a lock nut here. But when you tighten this down, you don't want to tighten it too much. Just enough where there's a little bit of resistance on this shaft, but you don't want to be preloading the bearings and shortening their life by doing that. It doesn't need to be super tight, just enough. This washer will bottom out on that shoulder if you do get too tight, fortunately, but just use good discretion. I also, again, want to bring up using a good quality synthetic grease. The design of this little block here is such that, as you can see, there's not really an avenue for dirt and grime to work its way in. I think over time, you know, some probably will get past, but it keeps the grease in, keeps the dirt out. But definitely use a little bit of bearing grease. Anything that I'm shipping out will come pre-greased, but it doesn't hurt to add a little bit. That's pretty much all I have. This is ready to put back on your car. It's a like-for-like replacement. Just go through the normal process of centering your little, what's the name for it? That little arm that goes down to the other side of the transaxle. And at that point, enjoy the car. I definitely want to hear some feedback on how this is holding up for you, long-term use, things like that. So that's pretty much all I have. Good luck.